Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at elithecomputerguy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to elithecomputerguy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and in today's class, I'm going to show you how to create shapes in your HTML documents using CSS. So I'm going to be giving you some basic examples today that are probably a little bit of no-brainers. I'm going to show you how to create a square, I'm going to show you how to create a rectangle, I'm going to show you how to create a circle, and I'm going to show you how to create an oval. Past that, we're going to use a cheat sheet, because that's what all good technology professionals do when things start to get a little bit too complicated. So one of the resources I've talked about before that you should be using if you're learning CSS is a website called w3schools.com. It's very useful because they give you very specific information on how to do specific tasks, and not only that, they actually have an environment where you can play around with the CSS code live, click a little run button, and then it will output the results. Once we get past squares, rectangles, circles, and ovals, the CSS code gets a little bit squiggly trying to explain everything to you. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to W3 Schools. They have a lot of examples on different ways to create shapes, and so we'll just go over a couple of them there. And again, if you want to create a shape that is more complicated, you can just go to W3 Schools, figure out the shape you want, open that code up, see what it looks like, modify it to your needs, and then paste it into your project, which is what real coders do. Please, please. There are a lot of coders out there. There's a lot of newbies out there. They're like, copy and paste. Copy and paste is for amateurs. When I'm a professional, I will never copy paste. And here's the thing, as a professional, if somebody already wrote out all the code, and all you have to do is modify a couple of things so that it fits into your project, why are you going to hand type all of that code when you can simply copy, paste, modify a couple of things, and be done with it? Again, it's important to understand with when you copy and paste what type of code you're copying and pasting. So if you're copying and pasting JavaScript or possibly PHP, like real programming code, you do have to worry about major vulnerabilities within whatever project that you're creating, right? So if you just copy and paste 1,000 lines of JavaScript or 1,000 lines of PHP, and you don't really go through and audit that code and verify what that code is doing, there may be some place in the code where it's taking all of your information and shipping it off to somebody's server. So you do have to worry about that with real programming languages. Again, Java, JavaScript, PHP, Ruby on Rails, Python, that type of thing. But remember, when we're dealing with CSS, all this is style sheets. All this is a style sheet. So worst case scenario, if you don't look at the code quite properly, the background color will be a little screwed up and you'll have to go in there and modify it. So copying and pasting, to be clear, with CSS, you always knock on fake wood. It is almost always completely safe. So again, you can see what somebody else did with their style sheet. You can go, oh, that looks pretty. Copy, paste, dump it into yours, do the little modifications as you see fit, and now that is in your project and you didn't have to go through and figure out every specific setting. So do understand that every once in a while I'm going to show you examples from w3schools.com. Just to be clear, they're an incredible resource. I have no connection with them at all, have no idea who runs it, anything like that. They are just an incredible resource. And again, for a lot of these projects, when you start getting into how to create a trapezoid, right? How to create a trapezoid or how to create different types of triangles, I could sit here for an hour and walk you through all of these different shapes, and then you would completely forget it anyway. So if I just show you W3 Schools and I can say, look, here's the 20 examples that they have. If you like one of those, click on try it, modify it as see fit, copy, paste. That will do a lot better for everybody at the end of the day. So anyways, let's go over to the computer. Again, I will show you the complicated task of squares, rectangles, circles, and ovals, and then we'll go over to W3 Schools just to show you some of the other shapes that you can create. So here we are back in my demonstration machine. Again, I am using a MacBook, so to write these two files, I use TextEdit. All you need for something like this is an ASCII text editor. So if you're on Windows, you can use Notepad, and Mac, you can use TextEdit. In the Linux world, you can use gedit, nano, vim, whatever you want. Basically, all you need is a basic ASCII text editor. You're going to create two files. One I've called shape.html. So this is what's actually going to be opened up in the web browser. The main thing here is it has to end with .html. And then we have shapestyle.css. So this is the style sheet where all of our styling is going to come from. These are the two documents that I've created. Let's just go take a really quick look at the HTML. Then we'll take a look at the style sheet. And the HTML is very simple here. So again, we open up the HTML, we open up the head, then we're going to link to the style sheet. Relation style sheet, and then the href. Again, as long as the style sheet is in the same folder or directory as the document, you can simply put the name there. If it is in another folder or directory, you would have to put the full file path. We're going to close the head, and then we're going to open the body. Then all I have here is just I have 4 different divs with specific classes. So div is basically where you kind of create a section, you create a division on your HTML document. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to create that div. It is going to be a shape, and then it's going to have a specific background color so it actually shows up and we can see it. So I have a div. The class for this is going to be a square, so it's going to be a square. We don't put anything within the div itself. You could put some text here if you wanted to, but we're not putting anything because all I want is a basic shape. Then we do a break. Then we're going to div class of rectangle, close the div class of circle, close the div class of oval, close the div. So this is going to give us a square, a rectangle, circle, and an oval on our HTML document. Then we can go over and we can actually take a look at the CSS, and it's pretty simple. A lot of this you've probably already seen before. Most of this you've seen before in other classes, but this is just kind of focusing on it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a class of square. So dot square, and then we're going to say what this class is. So we're going to give it a width of 40 pixels. We're going to give it a height of 40 pixels, and we're going to make the background color gray. Now, it is important when you're doing these projects that you actually set the background color. Because if you don't set the background color, and especially if it's on a white page, then it's just going to be white, and you're not going to see it. Again, that's one of the difficult things in the coding world. You can have something exist and not be able to see it at the exact same time. So if you don't put a background color, you won't be able to see it. So it doesn't matter what the background color is, just give it one. So this one I gave gray. Then I created a rectangle. So for this, the width will be 100 pixels. It'll be 100 pixels wide, 40 pixels tall. And again, I gave that a background color of gray. Then we're going to go down to the circles. The circle and the oval. This might be a little bit new to you, but it actually uses what I've already shown you in a previous class. So with this, literally what we're going to be doing is we're going to be rounding the square. Right? So basically, imagine you have a square, and then you're trying to round the edges of the square, and then you round the edges of the square so much that it becomes a circle. That logically is literally what we're doing here. So the first thing that you're going to do here is you're going to do the same thing that you did when you had a square. You're going to make it a width of 40 pixels, you're going to make it a height of 40 pixels, and you're going to give it a background color of gray. Literally exactly what we did up here. The difference is then we're going to use the border radius. So I did a class talking about borders, and one of the ways you can format your images is by basically giving rounded borders, and that's what this border radius does. And so we're actually going to give this a border radius of 50%. So if you give it a border radius of 50%, basically that means it rounds all the borders to the point that it turns into a circle. We go down here and we take a look at the oval. So an oval is the exact same thing as a rectangle. Width of 100 pixels, height of 40 pixels, background color of gray. But again, we're going to do that border radius to 50%. By setting it to 50%, it's going to round the border radius, so it turns into an oval. If we go over and we actually take a look at the demonstration, this is then the example that we get. So this is our square. Again, it's gray. All of these are gray. 40 pixels by 40 pixels, right? Rectangle, 100 pixels by 40 pixels. Now, with the circle, if you can kind of tell, you'll notice the height and the width of it is actually 40 pixels, but the border radius has been rounded to such a degree that is now a circle. Same is then true with the oval in regards to a rectangle. So basically, this is still 100 pixels wide by 40 pixels tall, but you have rounded the border radius to the point that it now looks like an oval. If we go back, just to give you a little bit of example for how this would work, let's say I only set the circle to 25% for the border radius. I can do File, I can do Save, and then this might be something you're a little bit more accustomed to. So basically, see, so what this is this is a square with rounded borders, and all we're doing as we increase the percentage of the rounded borders, we're just slowly turning it into a circle, right? So if we do 50% then, we do File, we do Save, we now have a circle. That's all we're doing here. Again, if we go down to the border radius for the oval, let's just set it to 25% to give you an idea. We do Save, we do Refresh. See, now it's a rectangle with rounded borders. Essentially, that's literally all we're doing here. We're just rounding the borders to such a degree that it then turns into an oval. So those are the basic examples of square, rectangle, circle, and oval. Past that, to be clear, you can do a lot more really cool things. That's where you go to some site like w3schools.com. Again, one of the things you have to remember in coding is that once you create a basic way to do something, other people can simply copy and paste it. Again, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel all the time. And so again, that's why I recommend you have a book or you go to something like W3 Schools, because then you can have an idea in your head about what you want to do with CSS, and then you can just go and research it and see if somebody else has done it. Like you may be sitting here going, but Eli, I don't want a rectangle, I want a trapezoid. So I can go here and I can click on this Try It For Yourself button, and this gives me the trapezoid, right? So basically the important thing here is we're creating a class for trapezoid. We're doing a border hyphen bottom, 50 pixels solid of, this would be gray color, border hyphen left, 25 pixels solid transparent, border hyphen right, 25 pixels solid transparent, height 0, width 125 pixels. And so what you can do here is you can go and you can start playing around. Let's see, if we did the bottom border, we turned it to 150 pixels, and then we can click the run button, and we can see that's what it turns into. Then we can get rid of that. And I don't know, the left. What if we made the left 125 pixels? And then that's, then you can start going through here and tweaking things and figuring out what you actually want it to look like. One of the interesting things to realize here, see with this border left and this border right, you're actually creating borders. And when it says solid transparent, the interesting thing here is that this is actually a color. So in order to make these shapes, what's happening is you kind of create a shape and then you're chopping off bits of the shape. It's kind of like doing layers. And so one of the interesting things you can do here too, like if I change this to solid red and then I do run, you can now see that this is the border that's been created, right? So if I go down here to border right, and let's say I turn it to green, you can see that's the border that's been created. Basically, what we're normally doing here in order to create the shape is you simply set it to transparent. Let's make sure I don't do that. You set it to transparent so you don't actually see that border. So that's one of the things to be looking at here. Again, you can go down, they have things like triangles, so triangles may be important for you for whatever project that you're doing. And again, let's say right triangle, you're creating an arrow. Try it for yourself. So basically the important thing here is you're creating this class, triangle hyphen right. You'll notice the width is 0, you'll notice the height is 0, but then border top, border left, and border bottom, these are the settings that then create this triangle. So if I want to do border left, if I want to extend this out, I can make this a larger triangle. So see, then that becomes a larger triangle for you. Or if I want to like skew the triangle into a bit of a different direction, I can modify it that way. And so this is one of the things. And again, this is what you can do as a real coder. You can sit here and play around with all this stuff on w3schools.com, and then all you have to do is you can simply copy and paste, put it into your project, and away you go. And again, that's one thing, especially with shapes. What's really nice with W3 Schools is you can just sit here and play with all of this and figure out what probably is going to work best in your project. And it's very easy to play with here. You don't have to go through multiple documents or any of that. You don't have to do save, refresh. You can just plug things in, see what works for you, and then again, like I say, copy and paste. So W3 schools for the rest of these shapes. Again, if you want to do trapezoids, parallelograms, triangles, so on and so forth. So there you go. Now you know how to create basic shapes in CSS for your HTML documents. Again, basic shapes can be very useful just as graphical flourishes in your HTML documents. When you want to get more complicated with these shapes, doing things such as creating charts or creating some kind of basic diagrams with these shapes are things that you can do, again, to make it easier for your users, for your visitors, to be able to understand the information that they're being presented with. One of the most important things I do want you to take out of this lesson, though, is that professionals do copy and paste. There's this weird, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is with new people, with noobs out there. They're like, I will never copy and paste. Why not? If somebody just wrote out 10 lines of code or whatever in order to accomplish a specific task, and that's a task that you need to accomplish, and all you need to do is like modify a couple of settings to make it work, why are you going to type all of that out just to prove that you're professional or something? The reality is, and this is very important to understand, in the technology world by and large, is that you cannot remember everything. Again, as somebody who started in technology before Google is what Google is today, before so many things were searchable, let me tell you, having to actually memorize almost everything in your job sucks. I had to do that back in the day. I remember back in the day when I became an IT professional, Microsoft used to have this program called TechNet, right? So TechNet gave you all the software that Microsoft created so that you could test it, and then they would give you their white pages. So basically, the idea is all the research, all the information they had on their projects, that was something that you could pay for. You paid like $400 a year for access to all those documents. Yeah, this was. This was before everything was completely internet-based. And so basically what you would get is you would get stacks of CDs. And then one of those CDs would be the index CD. So if you had a question about setting up a routing with a Windows NT4 server or something like that, you would literally put the index CD into your computer. You would type your search. It would give you the results on what CD to pop in, so that you could actually read the document about whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. I remember those days. Those days sucked. Those are bad times. It was not a good time to be a tech. In the modern world, when you have Google, when you have the ability to very easily copy and paste, do it, right? It allows you to be able to be far more productive than trying to believe you can remember every single one of these settings and then be able to spit it out accurately whenever you need it. The fact of the matter is, whenever you're going to be creating a project, there are going to be a lot of weird things coming up. Again, why would you need a trapezoid? Like, why do you need to memorize how to create a trapezoid in CSS? How often does this come up? But if you know that when it does come up at some point, you can just go to W3 Schools or something else, again, copy, paste the code, dump it into your project, and away you go, then that allows you to keep you rolling through the project without having to learn something that it's not going to matter at the end of the day that you have memorized. The important thing to understand, though, when you start doing copy and paste, and this is important when I was talking about doing this with CSS versus other programming languages, is that you do need to be able to audit the code. There's a difference between writing the code and reading the code. It's kind of like understanding a foreign language, right? When you go to a foreign country, many times it's more important that you understand what people are saying than being able to say it yourself. If you understand what they're saying, you can probably find a way to communicate with them to get something accomplished. But it's very important that you understand what they're saying. And so when you're looking at the code, the important thing to understand before you copy and paste is that you can read the code, right? You don't have to type out, right? If you've got 10 or 20 or 100 lines of code, there's no reason to retype out the exact same code. But you do need to be able to read what the code is doing and understand exactly what it's doing so that you verify that you're not putting vulnerabilities, you're not putting some kind of weird-ass hack attack or something like that into some kind of production system that that you're going to be putting out to the world. So again, it's not necessarily important that you're actually able to write just from memorization the code. It is absolutely important that you can read the code and be able to audit it and understand more or less what's going on. So that's one of the big significances with copy and paste. Copy and paste, absolutely valuable in the coding and the technology world in general, but just make sure you can audit it. And that's where things like W3 Schools, it's very useful. Because again, I love W3 Schools for things like shapes, because you just go there, you can tweak all the settings, you can get something that more or less looks right, you copy and paste it to your project, do a couple of more tweaks, and away you go. Far more productive than having to basically relearn how to create a triangle every single time that you need to do it. So anyways, I hope this class was useful for you, and look forward to seeing you at the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to eliTheComputerGuy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos, or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year, and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.